Shane, welcome.
Hey, hey Zach, happy to be here. How are you?
Doing well. I appreciate you coming on. And if it's all right with you, you're going to be the professor today for the class.
Sure. Excited.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm excited to have you on because we do have a similar background in how we started our business career. And before we get into the class at why invest in multifamily, looking at it at a 30,000 foot view level, that's consulting lingo, as we would say. How did you become in the position you're in? Just give a few minutes on your background.
Sure. Yeah, no, first off, thanks for having me and good afternoon to all the audience. Yeah, like you said, I come from a consulting background, but kind of take it I guess a little step back. I'm based in Houston now, but originally from Toronto, Canada, and studied for accounting and did my master's in accounting and whatnot. And I'm a CPA by trade. So, worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is where you worked, and started off in the audit practice and moved over to consulting. And so when I saw that you had joined, this industry, obviously, I was excited to find another kind of PwC alum in the business. And so we connected on that. We were actually in the same group, which is, a relatively small group. So it's definitely a small world, but yeah, kind of come from a finance, accounting background, worked in management consulting for about 10 years, and really advised, CFOs, CEOs on process, finance strategy, did a lot of system implementations for large companies, and kind of just traveled across, the US, moved to the US in 2010 for work. And then, yeah, I actually enjoyed what I was doing, especially the people that I was working with, but kind of long story short, just wanted to, kind of got married and, kind of started a family and whatnot. And just the road life wasn't, kind of for me after a while. And so decided that, if I continued on this path, it would be hard. The opportunity cost to go and start something and do something would, just get higher and higher. So kind of taking a step back, I actually, had been interested in real estate for a long time, ever since I was a kid, if you want to call it that. And right after college, I started buying some single family actually in, Toronto, where I'm from. Right. And so always kind of had the real estate bug, if you will, and just kind of not knowing much, to be honest with you, just kind of got in, got my feet wet, and got lucky for to a certain extent. The Toronto market, had performed and continues to perform pretty well, and so then after moving to the U.S., and like I said, kind of traveling and whatnot, I knew I wanted to get back into real estate, and just kind of knew that multifamily, for a number of reasons, whereas where I wanted to transition into, right? And basically, at that time, didn't know it was going to be, large multifamily like we're doing now. And this was about in 2014 is really when my mind started saying, okay, I got to start something and I want to get back into real estate. And then so to kind of fast forward from then till now, we've done, as a general partner, as a sponsor, we've led over 700 units of apartments in Texas between Houston and Dallas, and invested in several thousand more as a limited partner as well. So it's been a great journey. Obviously it definitely been a learning experience, but now I've got my business partner based in Dallas. We've got a small team now, do this full time and really, really enjoy what we do. So happy to, add on any of those points.
Yeah. So when you were in consulting, I think you said you started off in single family homes. Were you buying single family homes while you were a consultant at the time?
Yeah. So I was working full time, and, it was just kind of like a side thing, if you will. Right. And so, fortunately had some help back in Toronto, where I was living in Chicago at the time, in terms of, kind of a family helping me with, maintenance and things like that. Right. But it was a kind of another reason why I knew that, for me to kind of scale, right, it would be a tougher area to scale in single family. And so, and, I knew that I wanted to do this as a business, not, just as kind of like a, not to say that single family is passive, but like, when it's your own money and you could kind of go at your own pace, it's a little different than, with multifamily, we're really running, these businesses, that happen to be, in real estate. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes to, I could say, real estate has been in a way glorified these past, 8 years with social media. We got the single family house flipping,
yeah.
or everybody wants to become, a passive multifamily investor. If you're just starting off in your real estate career, what would you say in the sense of why you should choose multifamily, and this is the route you went in versus single family?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's every career, every person kind of has an evolution, right? Whether you start from college or whatever you decide to go into. I think single family is just kind of the natural place where a lot of people start. You kind of you either you rent an apartment, you've lived in a home, or you buy a home, and then you decide to kind of move up, or buy another home, and you keep one as a rental, and then you realize you could earn some equity and whatnot. And so I think a lot of people just kind of fall into single family, and also, some of them becomes landlords by accident. And so, I'm not, I think single family, there's, I know a lot of people that do very, very well in single family. Right. And so, but it's, multifamily is just different. Right. And to me, they're very similar in terms of, it's residential housing, right? But they're just the way you buy them, the way you operate them, the way you treat them, it's just different. It's kind of like football and rugby, kind of similar concepts, but totally different skill sets, right? And so for me, I started off in single family. I still think that it's a good way to, get into real estate, build wealth, etc. But there's a few reasons that I could share that I think that multifamily just, kind of, in my opinion, is just a little bit more scalable, if you will. So I could share those if you want.
Yeah, elaborate on that if you don't mind.
Sure. So, I think first and foremost, right, multifamily, and when I define multifamily, it's really anything above 4 units. It's treated as commercial real estate versus residential real estate, and commercial real estate's valued based on income, right? And so that to me, just being a finance guy and just kind of thinking business oriented, right? You really have a little bit more control over your valuations, right? Whereas single family, I think most people know, what your property's worth is just comparative market analysis, right? So whatever your neighbor, you got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on this corner, if it's the same type of property, it's around the same value, right? And so with multifamily, you could have 200-unit properties that have vastly different valuations, just given the income and what has been done to the property, right? So I think in that regard, you have more control over the value, and if you take it a step further, you could force the value, right? So that's what we call in in multifamily value add acquisitions, right? Where we're buying an underperforming property, which is just like buying an underperforming business, right? Where that you can take it, and raise its income by doing, various improvements, to the interiors, reducing its expenses to raise the income, et cetera, to essentially, force the value up, right? Whereas in single family, it doesn't matter if you put marble, kind of countertops and flooring and whatever you want to do, you may get a little bit more value, but your upper limit is capped, right? Maybe plus or minus 5%, depending on the area and whatnot. So that was kind of the, one of the big driving forces for me. And the second thing, kind of is scale, right? I think, when I was thinking about, single family, managing homes and condos and whatnot, if you've got, say, call it 10 single family.
Hey, we're back. We're still live. That's the part of being
Okay.
live. Sometimes you're not gonna have it perfect. But go ahead.
Yeah, all right, no worries. Yeah, so I think I was talking about scale, right? And so the fact that you could have 10 single family homes, you've got 10 different roofs, you've got 10 different HVAC systems, you've got
Mm,
10 different, insurance policies, right? It just really becomes tough to manage that. And honestly, at 1, 2, 10 single family homes, it's hard to hire somebody full time where it makes sense, right, to manage that, right? So you're kind of managing yourself and whatnot, and it's really hard to treat it as a business, right? Whereas multifamily, say if you buy a 100-unit property, you've got, one area, one complex, you could hire a management company. You've got full-time staff, right? You've got a leasing agent, you've got a manager, maintenance, that they're on site every single day. It's their full-time job, and they're running the property, and the property's expenses support the payroll, right? And so
right.
there's just so much more scale as you get, kind of to a certain number of units. And quite honestly, the larger, to a certain extent, the larger the property is, the easier it is to manage. And, your costs start going down per unit, right?
Right.
It's kind of like, the second reason for me. And then you could, like I said, you're treating it as a business, right? So, we're not at the properties every single day collecting rent, right? But we're managing the manager and making sure that our business is being managed properly, by making sure that we're following the KPIs and et cetera. So I think scale's a huge thing in terms of advantage. So a couple other ones, I think it's financing, right? And so one of the advantages of financing in general is, you're getting leverage to buy property, right? Which you can't, necessarily do easily with stocks and whatnot. And I think the thing that differentiates multifamily from single family, for example, is you got the ability to get non-recourse financing, right? So if anybody in your audience, kind of owns their own home, most likely they've personally guaranteed, the mortgage, right? To the bank, right? So if you can't make your mortgage payments, they have recourse against your other assets, your income, et cetera, right? Whereas in multifamily, since they view the property as a business, they're really looking at the property first and then the sponsorship team second, right? And so what that enables them to do is really provide you non-recourse non-recourse financing, which is really powerful if you think about it, right? Like there are carve-outs, and really, what that means is just clauses that say if you do something fraudulent or negligent, and whatnot, then they could, make it recourse. But if you do all the right things and something totally out of your control happens, right, the only recourse the lender has is the property, right? And I think that's just kind of a huge benefit, particularly for multifamily, residential real estate. So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So just echoing on, I think the most, prominent thing that you mentioned was that it was scalable. And so when you knew you were going to go from, residential to multifamily, what skills did you feel helped you since you started off at corporate, and what did you need to build upon that you knew in order to get into that position? Because you treat it like a business, you were going to need to attain.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, one thing to realize is that, when I transitioned from kind of single family to multifamily, for me, it was actually kind of a 3-step process. The first was, just getting the mindset right to make sure that, hey, I want to take that leap. And then, the second was, for me, I was actually going to go buy a small multifamily, right? And like, to me, that was like 10, 20 unit in Chicago at the time, because I had limiting beliefs, right? But the real transition came when you realize that, you can partner with people, right, to buy the larger apartment complexes that we buy now, 100 units, 200 units, right? So, and you're really creating a win-win situation, right? Because, 5 years ago, I never really could fathom thinking about buying a 265 unit property, right? And so, we've got partners and investors and people that we work with, where, there's a partnership and there's an alignment of interests, right? And so, that's kind of the journey, if you will, and I got educated, right? I mean, the biggest thing, is, in single family, you're, typically using your own money, or you're getting, kind of a hard money loan or whatnot. When you start getting into multifamily, where you're buying these properties that are 5, 10, 15, $20 million, and you're raising money from other people, right? I mean, you're running a business, and at the end of the day, the people that invest with you, they want to know that you know what you're doing, they like and trust you, right? And so, a lot of the skill set that I've been able to bring from my past life, is, just overall, just people management, relationship building, kind of the high level stuff that really matters. Because at the end of the day, what I found is that, you could have the fanciest PowerPoint or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, people invest in people, right? Once they understand this business. And so, I think the other thing to think about is that this business is, if you really think about it, it's relatively simple concept, right? It's bricks and sticks. You got rents as revenue, and you've got expenses, right? But there's a ton of moving pieces, right? And you really need a team, right? And I think, kind of coming from a consulting background where everything was about team or was about execution, right? I was really able to kind of leverage that skill set. And look at everything from a process perspective, right? In the beginning, my first deal or so, and first and anything, you're kind of fumbling through it. You're trying to figure it out. And then, what we've been able to do now is really just kind of systematize, our business to the best possible, right? So we're not reinventing the wheel. We've got flows and processes, and between my partner and I and our team, we've got different roles and responsibilities, right? And we try to focus on what we enjoy and what we're good at. And so, a lot of these skills, like, I come with a lot of finance, accounting, investor relations, investor communication kind of experience that helps on that aspect of the business. But, I'm not an expert in everything, right? And so, my partner, he has a lot of operational experience, legal, insurance, right? So, the key is not to know everything, right? But be resourceful enough to form a team, right? Where you as a team collectively, right, have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it reminds me in consulting when we would do system implementations, it's almost impossible to know everything that goes into an ERP system. But my partner would always tell me, he's like, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough that no one can BS you when, you're doing the configuration or putting the system and processes in place. So it sounds like you kind of did the exact same thing. You can't be a master in everything. That's why you needed a team to help you scale and be in the position where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are team sport. But like this commercial real estate is absolutely a team sport. If you think about it from all aspects, and even if you wanted to go buy your own deal, like eventually, people want to scale and whatnot. And you still need a team when you're buying your own deal, from the multitude of vendors and whatnot. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I truly enjoy it, right? Where a single family, it's good, but it's more of a lonely business, if you will, right? It just, you have these contractors, they skip out on you and stuff like that. And, when you're in kind of the larger commercial space, you're kind of dealing with, people with seasoned businesses, professionals and whatnot. And I really enjoy kind of the camaraderie and the teamwork, that I did not necessarily have in kind of the single family space.
Right. So you make the decision to leave corporate from going from single to multifamily. You build the team around you, and you improved on the skills that you need to get in place. Just walk me through maybe your first deal or your second deal of common hardcore issues and challenges that you faced that you could have not been prepared for, and how did you deal with those during
Yeah. No, so our first deal was a few years ago. It was a 125 unit deal in Houston, right? Yeah. So just south of Houston, and it was about a $5.7 million deal. So we had to raise $2 million. And so that deal, we got it off market and whatnot. And, we were networking for a long time, kind of prior to getting our first deal. Right. So my partner and I, he also comes from a professional background, had his own business. He started off in single family as well, but we had never done a multifamily deal, if you will. So we've got, we had some mentorship. and some training. And we also brought on a experienced partner, right? So on our first deal, I brought on somebody that, is a friend of mine that has done over, I think at the time, over 20 deals in the commercial real estate space and primarily in multifamily, right? And so, obviously we're raising money, putting in our own money as well as, $2 million of other people's money. And even though we were educated in the space and spent a lot of time pre-doing our first deal, it really helped because we had that experienced partner, right? And so, so that's how we, had the confidence to go out and do our first deal. A couple years ago when we did the deal, it was, Hurricane Harvey was right in the middle of it and whatnot. And, there was a lot of times where like literally we were supposed to close a week before closing, Harvey hit. And there was just so many things in the contract that, a lot of people just kind of skip through kind of the catastrophe clauses and the acts of God clauses and whatnot. And so, you're kind of reading through these things and, with, the mentorship and with the experienced partner, we were able to kind of negotiate our way through and get the deal done, and so, those are the things that, I couldn't really plan for, but I know that because we had the team and the experience, I really think that that was the reason why we got that deal closed versus if I was trying to do this myself, I think there's a huge risk that maybe that deal doesn't happen or we run into more roadblocks. And so that was kind of a pre-acquisition, kind of experience. And then, just like anything, there, you definitely have your, you have your business plan and then you execute. And, we had challenges with our management company in the beginning, right? And so, we kind of were monitoring them and we just kind of knew that they just weren't executing and we weren't getting the service that, that we expected, right? And so we had to make decision on in terms of replacing them and when to replace them. And again, it was, having that experienced partner, kind of helped us, kind of think through the challenges in terms of, things to prepare for in terms of transition and whatnot. And so, it goes back to, there's always going to be challenges, right? And, and we've done, like I said, 700 units and, every single deal is different, and whether it's challenges, every single closing is different. There's always a couple things that show up, but I think surrounding yourself with the right team or having, being resourceful enough to be able to know who to call, as things arise, right? And so, it's really about problem solving at the end of the day. And so you just kind of learn and, I'm always thinking about, just like in consulting, I always kind of do debrief sessions after every major thing that we do. We close a deal, we sell a deal, we do a major project. Hey, just do some lessons learned, right? And then just incorporate that into our process.
So were you not able to, so obviously you leveraged your experience mentor. Did he help you get the financing? Is that a requirement because you haven't done a multifamily deal before?
Yeah. So one of the things when you go for financing, even though, obviously it's non-recourse and the bank, looks at the property first, they also want to know that you have some experience in doing these types of deals, right? And so, one of the things, that they look at is making sure that you have a professional management company, but also the experienced team, right? And so, the experience of my partner helped us get the loan for sure.
And did you have to give up maybe a percentage of returns just because this was your first deal and you were going to do more of the day-to-day, boots on the ground than he was, or how did that work for your first deal?
Yeah. So
Well, that's the part of live. Sometimes it kicks people out, and so we're trying to get Shane back on, and it helps to know that this happens to other people. So just some technical difficulties. I apologize for the inconvenience. I'll try to edit this when it comes out, but just trying to get Shane back on at the moment. Shane, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, but I'm not sure what happened there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh, there you are.
Odd.
It's part of being live. It's still
Yeah. No.
at least you can talk, but it's comforting that I know this happens to Jimmy Fallon. So I think
Yeah. No worries at all. But
yeah, we were just talking about on your first deal, did you have to give up maybe a percentage or something because you weren't you're doing more boots on the ground, you're buying that mentorship and all that.
Yeah. No, I think with any partnership, right, it's all about kind of roles and responsibilities, right? And so definitely, I mean, we made sure that we had a good alignment of interest there, right? And then also just we decided what was fair for that deal, right? And so he was bringing a lot of experience and background and resume, and so we determined what was fair in terms of kind of the splits. And move forward from there.
Yeah. No, that's good advice because I've studied people who've done great in real estate, and it seems there's a common trait that is don't lose on your first deal.
Yeah.
That first deal is really a confidence builder. It really provides credibility with with your investors, the lenders, and the management team that you can execute on your business plan.
Yep. Yeah. Honestly, I didn't even really. I didn't even look at it in terms of from the money. I wanted it from, the experience and the credibility, just like you said, and, you'd rather have a small piece of something than a big piece of nothing, and it was a great learning experience. And, we were able to scale from there.
Yeah. So, as we were going into this COVID-19 era, and, you're buying your first deal, you're holding on to it. How are you looking at the environment as this is a time to buy? There might be, price discrepancy between, buyer and seller, or if you have assets, when do you advise people when to sell them? Everyone has their different investment strategy, but what is like a core fundamental thing that you would advise other people to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously right now we're in challenging times, to say the least, right? And everybody has been impacted by this, right, around the world. But from a real estate perspective, I'm a firm believer that it's always a good time to buy, right? I mean, there's always opportunities to buy, right? I think whether even if you go down back to 2008, 2009, I think there are still deals to be had, right? You just got to kind of always, kind of look at your strategy and make sure you feel good about the deal, and have a long-term vision, right? I mean, I think where, challenges happen is where you try to get into a deal and, if you think about it more of a single family side, you kind of get in just to flip a deal, right? And that's where kind of a lot of challenges happen, because say if there's no financing at that time that you're trying to flip, or the market turns, then you're kind of holding an asset without cash flow. But with, the deals that we buy, we generally have 3 to 5 year plans, right? And we make sure that we have the right financing in place that enables us to, hold longer if we need to, right? And so from a buy perspective, I always think that there are opportunities right now. I mean, it's a little bit more challenging just because of the environment, and whatnot. On the sell side, it's not always a good time to sell, right? I think, and that's where it's very important to have multiple exit strategies and have flexibility, right? Because you just never know, right? I mean, right now, I think 2-3 months ago when COVID just hit, everything just kind of froze up. There was no liquidity in the market. There was no deals happening. And the few deals that I did see happen, that they were, probably had at some discounts, right? I saw like 10% or so discounts. And, at that time, I think the seller, if they had to sell, they probably were just like, hey, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're just gonna, take maybe a little bit of a haircut and move on, right? Whereas I know most other sellers, even if they had planned to maybe sell mid 2020, at this point in time, they're probably like, if there's no true urgent need, they're probably holding on, right? And so what we're seeing now, is that most deals that are coming out in the market right now, what I'm seeing is pretty close to pre-COVID pricing, right? And so, and it gets kind of just goes to show you just can't really, time, the sell. I think the way that I think about selling is that if you've executed your plan, right, just take some chips off the table, right? And so, you could always kind of go back and say, we sold a deal last year, and I joked with my partner 6 months later, like, hey, we should have just held on to that deal. Cap rates were compressing, you could have got a little bit more money, and then COVID happened, right? So then, it was just kind of another reality check, on basically what I just said, right? I mean, you just gotta, if you've executed your plan, and I think it's time to move on. So that's the mindset I have. So
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Of like, often, you're playing blackjack or something, you're up. You have to be disciplined just to walk away. And it's kind of what you're saying, the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think, your journey this far from where you started to where you are now, it's something that I look up to in a way. I'm very appreciative that I got to know you and building this relationship with you, because I'm kind of building a roadmap of, how it's done. Especially you're being so close in Houston and seeing first eye view of how you're doing it. What are you most proud of your journey thus far in multifamily?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, there's a lot of things. I mean, I'm very blessed. I've got a, great support system, my wife, I've been able to do this with raising, 3 kids under the age of 3 and whatnot. And so I'm very fortunate, and I make sure that I count my blessings every day. But, I think, being able to kind of transition and, build relationships with new people, and build a trusting relationship where people, have trusted me with, millions of dollars, of their capital that, we're putting to work, and, aligning our interests and trying to create a win-win, right? And so I'm proud of that. And the fact that, we've been able to kind of build a small company, right? And it's always been a dream of mine to, as a kid, I've always kind of had entrepreneurial, kind of bug, if you will, and, kind of slowly starting to see it come together, right? And I'm excited. Met a lot of good friends that I call now, my friends in this industry. And, I think we're just getting started. I kind of, baseball analogy, sometimes I still feel like I'm in the batter's box, and then just enjoying the journey. I think that's where a lot of people kind of think about, hey, I got to get to this certain spot, and then, I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to do something else. I mean, I think, you got to really enjoy the journey, right? And there's never going to be a perfect time, right? I think, and that's where, I mean, even when I made this transition, to do this full time, I mean, we had some traction, we had a few deals under our belt, but there's never going to be a perfect time. So I think you definitely, if you're, have the right mindset, and you got to take a little bit of risk, some risk, but if you have your team and surround yourself with the right education and team, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, and I think this kind of correlates exactly to this interview. It wasn't a perfect interview with some technical difficulties, but we weathered the storm per
Yep.
se, and I learned a lot from you, just from from a high level, and just hearing how you did this as starting off very small. You're a patient, and you did this while having a family. I think that is it's a testament to what you've accomplished thus far.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's been great, and it's definitely a team effort. And like I said, great support system. And I've just kind of surrounded myself with like-minded people, and so, when we connected, I think you're doing great stuff. I mean, the content that you're putting out there, the people that you're bringing on. And, I really wish, I think, 5-6 years ago when I started, even though social media was popular and stuff back then, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now, and so, you could really, there's a lot of good information out there. And so, people have a lot of resources at their disposal.
Yeah. So I think it's a great way to end it. I think you provided a blueprint of, of a person who's, thinking about passively investing. So how can they reach out to you, or what information can they reach out to you if you're going through, your next raising fund, if they're interested in investing with you?
Yeah, sure. So, just like you, Zach, I mean, I'd like to, kind of give back, and, I'm doing a lot of articles and stuff like that on LinkedIn and whatnot. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. And, I think the first thing is, kind of just get educated, right? And so if you guys, check out our website, we've got some stuff on there that can kind of help you understand the investment thesis of multifamily, kind of what we do. So, catequity.com, CAT or feel free to shoot me an email, Shane, SHANE, at catequity.com. And I'm pretty responsive. I'll get back to you. Love talking shop, and happy to help.
Yeah. So I think that's enough for class today. I think the school bell rang, and I appreciate you being on, Shane. This was it meant a lot to me, and I hope that you were able to just share your journey, and I hope it resembles to someone else's vision one day. So
yeah, no, happy to be here, and it was fun, exciting, and look forward to doing it again in the future.
Absolutely. All right. Till next time. Thank you, Shane.
All right, Zach. Take care.